All right, y'all. Well, welcome back. So I just wanted to do a short video talking about how I find my campsites and like roadside attractions and things like that, because that is one of the most commonly asked questions that I get is how do I find all these campsites? And really, basically for me, I've written down some notes here to go along with, but my biggest resource is Google Maps or just Google searches in general. You can also use Google Earth to go over some of those things. And I'll pull my phone out here and I'll do a little screen recording and I can show this to you guys on how that I use maps to find these spots. Let's see here. Okay, so we're kind of looking at the northeast corner of the United States here. I don't have anything marked in this area on maps. If I were to go over the Nebraska area, there would be pins everywhere. But I've never camped in this area, and I've never really looked up anything about camping. So the simplest way to do it is just zoom in to a local area that you'd like. Okay, so we're going to search here, and we're simply going to search camping. And it brought up multiple campgrounds that you can go through on the bottom down here. Ooh, let me back out of there, and you can kind of swipe through these and it'll show you the locations. And then if you want to click on one, you can look at all the information about it, check out some of the pictures to see if it's an interesting spot or not. And the best part about it is that you can zoom in on specific areas. So if you're going to be just in this area around Farmington, you can search just around Farmington for camping. And you have a few in the local area that you can go to. And then also, what I like to use it for, the same thing, is roadside attractions. So let's just go over here, right here. That sounds good. And then, yeah, simply search roadside attractions. And you should get some good spots that pop up that you can then go visit. That lighthouse looks pretty neat. So there's multiple different places. You get museums, you get all sorts of different places. And this is how I find a lot of like the world's largest this, the world's largest that. Like what's this? Bug Light. So it's another lighthouse, but it's a tiny one. This has been one of the best resources for me. And as far as the camping, etc. goes, if you search camping again, and you find a nice campsite, like let's go to this Wolfboro campsite, right here, you can pop down there and you can hit save. And you can save it in a few different categories on the side there. As you can see, I have 536 places saved in my starred, a few in want to go, and in favorites. I don't have any travel plans mapped out. But you can also write notes in these little areas about what it is or why you want to go check it out, because maybe what you're looking at isn't necessarily going to pop up on maps, but you know it's there, you know the location of it, and you can pin it and then write down some details about that. So for me, that's one of the main uses, one of the main things that I use to find campgrounds, and it works in all sorts of different locations. Anywhere you look on the map, you can find those things. A second thing that is great to use are Facebook groups. Whether it's you search for camping, you can find a ton of camping groups in your area, or just a large national camping group or global camping group, and get ideas from different people. And many times you can find cool spots to camp via those. You can search for like overlanding groups, off-road groups, or outdoors groups, all of those similar things, and you can bring up a bunch of different groups that will be full of great information, typically on places to camp at, or places to avoid camping at, or closures, things like that. So it's a really good resource to use that. Instagram, not so much, just because it's harder to find the groups, but you could search areas if you're wanting to do that, and you might be able to find some stuff that way. 3 we'll get into are paper maps. So this entire pamphlet here was given to me by Officer Cisco that I saw a few videos back, and this is all for the Los Hills State Forest. And inside of this are multiple maps, such as this one. And on this map, it kind of goes over the forest area, but simply by speaking to him, any of these little parking lots you're allowed to camp overnight in. There really isn't going to be any campground at those areas, but they are free, and I think there's going to be a train coming behind me. Well, there's a train somewhere over there. So those are great, and you can find stuff like that from any of your local, like outdoor departments, Department of Natural Resources, Fish and Game. Is there going to be a train coming? There's a train close. Every time I do a video like this, we have a train come through. So those are great. You can stop at many places and pick up pamphlets or brochures like this for the local area. And this is going to be full of area attractions that you can go check out. Don't forget about these types of things. Many times you can find stuff like this at gas stations and city offices. And we'll kind of get into the next one, which I have on here, which is if you're going to a specific area, you can call the local city hall and you can speak to them about any camping areas. One thing that I have noticed when using Google Maps is that sometimes the small town campgrounds don't pop up. In the Midwest area, many of the small towns will have a tiny little campground. Sometimes it's at like the county fairgrounds or something like that. And there'll be a few spots. It's usually nothing very fancy, but it's a great place that you can park for the night. And most of these places will have a bathroom and electricity. So it is somewhat of a full service campground. It's just small and really meant for travelers to spend, 1 or 2 nights there at most. You can also, like in the United States, I believe every state out there is going to have a tourism commission or something along those lines. And those are also full of great information. You can call and speak with them. I think many of these places will send out stuff like this to you if you request it. So you can find this kind of information for other states that you would potentially like to go visit. And then number 5, which is something I don't use very often, but I have used a few times, are apps. So one in particular we'll just talk about is called iOverlander. You can find it on the app stores, and it's kind of like maps, but it's centered around camping. It's a good resource to find public use lands that you can camp at. And I believe on some of these you can map out trails. Like I said, that's not something that I use very often, but it's a great resource, and there are multiple different apps like that out there that are available for you to use. And there's different campground breakdowns also, because you're going to have your state campgrounds, you're going to have city campgrounds, and you're going to have privately owned campgrounds. So you can kind of look around and find what you'd like to do. Many times state public use lands like the wildlife management areas offer free overnight camping, but many of those spots don't have any resources. There's usually no fire pits or bathrooms, and many times you're restricted to the parking areas, but you can wander around in the woods. Most of these places are there for hunting purposes, but you are allowed to camp at them. And then there's, public lands, WMAs, which is what we were just talking about, BLM lands, which is a federally regulated thing, I believe. BLM is Bureau of Land Management, and there are many thousands of acres of public use lands that you can use. And there are certain BLM offices that you can go into. I don't know if there's very many of them around the United States, but you can find all of that stuff online also. And then public businesses that you can camp at. So these aren't going to be the greatest, most beautiful sites that you could stay at, obviously, but They're usually always free. You don't have to pay anything to park at them. And most of the time, they're going to have secure, fairly secure parking lots. A lot of the places will be open 24 hours. And you can camp at places like those. Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, Bass Pro, Cabela's, Camping World, which is an RV place. Some of them allow you to camp there. Cracker Barrel parking lots, which is a restaurant. Home Depot. You can also stop at churches and ask at a church if you can park in the parking lot if there's somebody there. Not all of these places across the board allow it at every location, but many locations allow you to park there overnight. It's the hopes that you'll come in and purchase something from the business while you're there. But there are so many ways to find them, and really what it comes down to is taking the time to look for these places. I spent a lot of time on Google Maps just searching for different campgrounds, and still to this day, even in my own general area where I have hundreds of spots marked, I can get on there and I can always find another place that I'd like to go to or check out that I've never heard of before. And a lot of these lately are becoming the parking lots for wildlife management areas or your state public land use areas, because they're free sites and because most people don't go there. And with the type of camping that I do, you're not going to run into people dragging trailers. At least it's highly unlikely that you're going to find somebody in a 30-foot RV on one of those types of locations. But like anything, you have to put the time in to find them, because I get asked a lot, why don't I tell where the campsites are in every video? Sometimes I do, but most of the time I do not, and it's because they're small spots or they're really cool spots, and I don't want to tell 60 to 70,000 people potentially or more where that campground's at, because it's going to lead to a lot more traffic. Same as the fishing world. You never tell anybody where your best spots are at. So yeah, take some time. I challenge you to get on Google Maps in your general area and find yourself a new campsite. It's really easy to do if you put the time and effort in to do so, and you can find some amazing spots that way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and as always, stay tuned for the next adventure. I'll see you in a bit.